Okay, morning, folks. Let's get going. So this is one of the first episodes of the Sunbird Adopter Series. So welcome to everyone. And today we will cover, understanding the power of Sunbird and how is it that organizations can use it for human capability development. We have a packed, but a focused agenda that we will cover today. So we will start with a keynote address from Jagadish Babu, where we will set the tone for the webinar today. And then we have the Sunbird product team and some of the partners who will share what are some of the Sunbird's key capabilities and how can organizations use it to for their advantage and for human capability development. Last, some specific examples of how organizations are using it today and what does it take to bring it all together. And then we'll have a concluding remarks. So this is the 2-hour agenda that we have planned out for today. And towards the end, in the last session, we will also share the details of how can further information be sought in case if anyone desires, or how can one access the recording details of this particular webinar. And in case if anyone wants to reach out to any of the team members for any further information or discussion. Okay, so with that, I would invite Mr. Jagadish Babu, who is the COO of EkStep Foundation, to take us through the keynote address for today's webinar. Jagadish, over to you.
Thank you, Saril. You can hear me well?
Yes, loud and clear.
And would you be able to move your slides yourself so that we can just continue from here?
Sure.
Okay, good. Thanks. So if you can. Okay. So first of all, I'm excited for the opportunity to be opening up this remarkable session, which represents the work of almost 4 years of work of various organizations that has developed the needed building blocks, and that's an opportunity for me to present some of those building blocks to all the adopters. So we have been conducting these sessions in the last 3 months or so, delving into various aspects of Sunbird. All the contributing organizations of Sunbird, which is an open source human development platform, human capacity development platform, has been coming on webinars like this, and much of their work is available on YouTube as well as on the Sunbird website. So I request all of you to refer to that for specific details around the building blocks of Sunbird, the architecture of Sunbird, etc. Today's perspective is focused purely for adopters on how they can leverage aspects of Sunbird for developing systems, conceptualizing and developing systems that helps them to participate in the human capacity development initiatives of their respective organizations, right? So it is for the adopters' sake that we're talking about. And what I will do is to set the tone for the rest of the session, and then introduce you to some of the building blocks that we will talk about, and then the team will talk about the specific building blocks in a very brief manner. The session is designed specifically to be brief so that the listener gets an understanding of the overview as well as the purpose to which those building blocks have been contributed. Sunbird is a community developed platform. Each of the contributing organization has developed these building blocks to suit specific needs. The architectural framework of Sunbird requires that these building blocks be generalized so that it can be used in different contexts. So when you hear these building blocks, hear from the perspective of the contributor who has purposed it for certain purpose. But the adopter can use it for a variety of purposes, and that's the perspective that I will unravel as we go in this 10 minutes. Essentially, what is human capital development? If you see the amount of information that we are generating, an amount of information that we have to consume for us to be skilled enough, we have to be a lifelong learner. For a long time, we have to be continuously seeking throughout the life cycle of our skill development. We have to be learning. And if you can go to the next slide, I want to classify this lifelong learning as kind of 4 stages. If you see in any organization, first of all, the kind of skills that one has to impart needs a specific set of information. So first aspect of skill building is access to the relevant information. Today, we are developing so much information is already available. We most of the time take access for granted. Access itself in the context of the learner to suit the habits of the learner, to suit the desires of the learner is a complete domain of understanding that we will explore further. Thus, facilitating the human to learn at their own pace, in their own circumstances, apply them in the area of work, in the area of skill acquisition, and collaborate with others so that they can become a network actor to solve complex problems. This is the aspect of the human capacity development we are all out to address. It's not enough if there is only information access. It's not enough if there is only learning and lack of application. It's not enough if you can only apply, but one has to collaborate effectively with a large network of actors to be able to solve complex problems. So this entire aspect is what EkStep Foundation and its set of contributors have in mind, or at least are thinking about when they develop these building blocks. Building blocks to address various aspects of it, and COVID has made us all leverage digital mostly for human capital development. There's no room for mostly synchronous coming together for human capital development aspects. So digital plays even more important role, but it does not mean to say that all of these are digital building blocks. There's a significant room for physical also. That means that face-to-face interactions, ability to interact with each other in a way and work with each other in a way that improves the overall skill. So there is aspect of physical as well as digital, but we today focus on some of the digital enablers that further the overall process of the adopters. Okay, go to the next slide. Yeah. If I want to elaborate further on what does that mean when we talk about access, today we do take access for granted, right? With a smartphone, you pretty much can access any information. But when it comes to actual relevant contextual information, organizing them for the consumption of the learner in a way that they would like to see, in a way that the organization wants to see, it's a whole new set of work. So the Sunbird building blocks are specifically designed to think about how would you look at enabling access and learning in context, be it accessing anytime, anywhere, in context of where the learner is, synchronously, asynchronously, especially in the COVID times, asynchronous has become very relevant. What is synchronous, asynchronous? Synchronous is a classroom learning where we are all together. Asynchronous is what we are doing now. What we are doing now is part synchronous. Many of us are on the webinar right now, but if you are listening to this talk 1 year down the line, you are basically accessing it asynchronously, right? At your time, when you wish to do in context of what you are trying to learn at that point in time, you are finding this particular video useful, and that's why you are asynchronously receiving it. Asynchronous provides significant scale, right? Synchronous has its benefits and its place. So asynchronously and synchronously, as well as online and offline, while we take access for granted, especially through internet methods, there are significant percentage of population who would like to consume that in places of low network penetration, maybe in print, right? Across digital, non-digital, online and offline. So aspects of access and learn and application of the learning in many domains apply and collaborate to solve are all in the physical space in many domains. In many domains, it's also in the digital space. So this learning is not limited to those who perform digital tasks. It's also to those who perform non-digital tasks. But capacity building can happen leveraging the digital building block. So that's the premise of this conversation, right? Eventually to facilitate human as a network actor to solve complex problems. Can you go to the next slide, Salil? So Sunbird, that was conceptualized about 4 years to specifically solve for large-scale human capacity development problems has been continuously evolving. And what you're learning is a snapshot of what it is in 2021, right? So, and last year itself saw many building blocks getting added to facilitate various aspects of this solution, right? So it could be self-paced upskilling, mentored learning process, peer learning process, which may happen online, offline, synchronously, asynchronously, right? Facilitator-led instruction, the way you would want to think about where there is a facilitator who would facilitate the overall skill development process, and anywhere, anytime, right? Most of us are, due to COVID, handling learning from our homes mostly, right? So this is the new paradigm in the last 2 years, but we have to be able to deliver the skilling anytime, anywhere, including where the person is performing the tasks themselves, right? So in all, these are the current scenarios in which Sunbird has imagined the capacity development paradigms so far, right? Can I go to the next slide? And from a how it lands on the human beings, if you think about three actors: learner, instructor, administrator. In three scenarios: learning, those who are engaged in helping the learner to learn, and managing this entire process. So keeping in mind these actors, end of the day, solutioning has to happen in deep context, right? So in generalized manner, in any large learning scenario and skill capacity development scenario, you have these three types of actors and these three types of scenarios, right? So this is the current construct of learn, help, learn, manage, learn for instructors, learners, and administrators. And generally, all interactions are designed around these four user actions. It doesn't mean to say that these building blocks cannot be put for new actions, but in the current context, these are all the current interactions that has been designed for learning, interacting, actual act of participating in the learning process, sensing to assess whether the learning is happening or not, and based on the outcome of sensing, further learning. So this is the cycle that the systems have been evolved around. Okay, next slide, please. Eventually, however, as I said, the designers could construct the design for one set of constructs. How do you deploy the same building blocks in variety of constructs? The approach that Sunbird follows is the approach of what we call unbundling approach. What is the unbundling approach? If you can go to the next slide. Essentially, building blocks that can be assembled to form variety of purposes to solve for the adopter's sake. That's the approach of building blocks. Each of the building blocks are generalized enough to be able to cater to various needs, so that variety of solutions to solve for diversity of learning needs can be catered to, right? So today what we will do, we will talk about some of these building blocks in brief, and the contributors will share their perspective of how they have thought about this, why did they think about this, and how you could leverage as an adopter. The outlook for an adopter to look for is how learn about these building blocks. If these building blocks serve you, and you can leverage these building blocks in three different ways. First, use them as they are. The whole set, what we call the Sunbird Ed repository. This whole thing is containing Sunbird Ed as a repository, or a Sunbird capacity development repository. That's one way you can say take the whole thing and use it. Or no, I would like to use only some of these building blocks. Okay, take some of these building blocks and leverage them as they are in your context that may be already working. So that's the second way of thinking about. The third way is each one of these building blocks leverage what we call microservices. If you want to know more about some of these microservices, you could go back to some of the previous sessions which talk about the specific microservices that power these building blocks, right? So you could leverage them, leveraging the microservices. So with these three ways of leveraging it, you could think about how can I not duplicate, how can I leverage the work of Sunbird to power my own human capacity development initiatives. So that's the motivation behind us coming back to talk about some of these building blocks. And next slide, please. Some of the existing adopters from variety of sectors, putting the same building blocks for very different needs are illustrated here. Ministry of Education in India developing a Diksha platform to cater to the learning needs of teachers, students, and school administrators from KG to grade 12. So Diksha platform has been widely used during the COVID times. I got is another Government of India initiative, which helps to skill up government employees in their area of work, right, under Mission Karma Yogi. And National Urban Learning Platform, again, for the workers engaged in the municipal administration and so on, skilling initiatives around around employees of the engaged in urban affairs. And Infosys, using the same building blocks to power the employee skilling initiatives, be it soft skills or skills around some of the areas of work. This is the diversity of purposes to which these building blocks have been put to. They have been adopted and used in context. And this is possibly the starting point. The reason why I say this is the starting point is, as more contributors catering to more adopters contribute those building blocks, we will see more both increase in the building blocks in terms of diversity, and each building block's ability to serve multiple use cases would only increase. With that outlook, I would like to invite all of you to learn about these building blocks, and our endeavor is to help the adopters leverage the open source building blocks as much as they can and contribute their use cases back in terms of building blocks that work for them. Okay. With that, I really thank the opportunity to open this session up. And over to you, Salil.